we 3D scan everything now. And then from 3D scan, we design everything in AutoCAD. And this is where things get very exciting. Now we go from AutoCAD to 3D printing. We have 10 or 700 grab handle, plastic grab handles. And they were so strong that we actually lifted the bike with it. The bike was hanging in the air. And this is, again, straight out of this printer. That's why we don't like to say we're the best. That would be absolutely stupid. I don't think they would take us anywhere. And I think actually it turns people off when you come off arrogant and also degrading to other brands.
Just this conversation right here is one of the reasons why people who follow and are very loyal to the Outback brand, I think, is just your honesty. I don't know. I feel like people just see that in your presentation, the crash test. It's, again, you show what it does. You don't just talk about it, you show it. So,
it's a small industry and we would like to get along with everybody because, we are brands. We make money and all that. We're in business. But at the end of the day, we're all connected by the same passion, which is motorcycles.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for clicking on this video and welcome to the Backcountry ADV Moto Podcast. Today, I've got a guest. You probably know if you've seen the thumbnail, which I'm assuming you did since you clicked on this video. I've got Lorry Gombos with us. He is the owner of Outback Motortek. And if you have not been living in a hole, you know who Outback Motortek is. It's one of the top, if not the absolute best protection company for ADV, dirt bike, dual sport motorcycles there is. Lorry has an awesome story. He's become a good friend of mine, and we have him on the show today just to kind of sit here, have a chat, and kind of get some backstory on the brand and kind of what's coming in the future, what he's doing now, and super excited about it. So welcome, Lorry. How are you, buddy?
Good. Thanks for having me on the show. It's super exciting.
Yeah. For you guys who don't know, Lorry's like super laid back, so he's really excited right now, but you just can't tell. So
I am very excited. Yeah. I think it's pretty cool. It's my second time doing a podcast, and so it's it's always it's interesting to get the spotlight. I prefer the spotlight when I have helmet on.
Right, you're right. So no one can actually like see your face very much and everything. Yeah. Let's go do that kind of stuff. So so you're actually traveling down in the U.S. right now. Lorry lives in Canada, Alberta. Don't get me.
British Columbia.
Yeah. British Columbia. Yeah. So he lives up in British Columbia, and the weather is not ideal for riding right now up in BC. So him and the family are taking a trip. So where are you at now?
We're currently in Southern California, and we're about a week away from crossing over to Baja.
Man,
it's really hard. Again, first world problems, I like to say. It's really hard to run a motorcycle business and be in Canada 24/7, 12 months a year. So oftentimes we skip parts of the winter and go south to do testing and shooting new content, or just to get some vitamin D.
Yeah, and much needed. I mean, we kind of here in North Idaho, something similar. We've had a ton of rain and we had cold and snow, but it's all melted now, and it's just been in the low 40s, and it just been raining day after day after day. So, which is great for fire season in the summer, but as soon as the snow goes away, my brain automatically is like, okay, riding season's right around the corner, but it's like the very beginning of February. So I know we still have a few more months.
Yes.
It's hard. I have a couple of trips planned. We're going to Costa Rica at the end of this month. So I have some moto stuff planned down there. It's a family trip, so we won't have a ton of moto down there, but maybe just to scout it out and maybe plan a trip on the way and go back at some point. But anyway, that's enough about me, man.
Squeeze it in.
Yeah.
And also
I'm gonna try to squeeze at least one day in.
Just rub it in gently.
Yeah. If I can get one day in, at least to say I rode down there, then that'll be good enough for me for now. And then I would love to be able to get in and maybe do a full like week or 10 days down there. Some of the tour companies that I've looked into are pretty amazing. So Elephant Moto being one of those. If you haven't heard of those guys, they're you can rent pretty much anything from them as far as adventure bike goes. So,
and it's a pretty small country. You can cover a lot of tracks in one day.
Yeah, and then it seems like most of the roads aren't really improved surfaces, so it's like perfect ADV and dual sport, just exploration. So
you can go from ocean to ocean, right? In one day, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much in one day. Yeah. See volcanoes, and it's crazy because the country is pretty small, but you go from one end to the other, and it's pretty different, from dense jungle to gorgeous sandy beaches. So I say that like
I've
I've been
never
there.
been. I've never been. I can't speak for that, but you know, I rode in the Philippines, and it's pretty epic that you just ride, and all of a sudden, from blue sky, it turns into like the monsoon rain cloud, and it's so hot that you're actually almost taking a shower. You're enjoying it, and then an hour later, it's blue sky again. It's amazing,
That's crazy.
and a
That's
lot of mud,
crazy.
a lot of
Yo,
mud.
I can imagine. We actually on purpose booked this time of year because it's kind of the end of their dry season.
Yeah, dry.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. So, I mean, normally if you go there in the wet season, you have to like rent a 4-wheel drive vehicle and all that stuff.
that's
And
right. Yeah,
having the whole crew with us, I wanted to keep it as easy going as possible. So, um, it's my wife's 40th birthday. That's where she wanted to go. So that's what we're doing. But anyway, man,
good, good.
let's jump into this. So can you just kind of give me the backstory about Outback Motortek and really what inspired you to start a motorcycle protection company? Like
Mm.
what fed that passion?
I will try to sum it up in a nutshell, but it's not easy. So,
We've got
I
time,
mean,
man.
yeah, well, I mean, long story short, I was born and raised in Hungary, so I'm actually Hungarian by birth, and that's my native language too. But I've always been into motorcycles. I've always been into traveling. I love maps. Geography was my favorite subject in school, and it just happens to be that my father is very similar. But my dad is a machinist by trade, and he started a company back in 1983 in communist Hungary when they were just coming out of this communist hellhole, and the government allowed private citizens to become entrepreneurs. And so, fast forward, I got into motorcycles too. My uh, early when I was teenager, 13, 14 ish, and so my dad put his passion aside for our passion for my brother and I. So he was managing a company, trying to build a company, but the economy was pretty tough. So he said, "Okay, you can have the bike. I will have a bike when things get better." So he would always tinker with the bikes, not mechanically, but to add something that we could not afford, but we could see it in catalogs, right? So I
Oh
want
yeah,
this. It's like, yeah, I can make it out of
I can
metal.
make that.
Yeah, exactly. So again, fast forward, my first motorcycle trip, that was like an overland trip, and this is back when the ADV thing was not a thing. This was,
Hmm.
adventure bikes were literally nobody paid attention to adventure bikes. This was in Europe, like Honda Transalp 650, 20 years
Yeah.
ago. Nobody cared. They were ugly, cumbersome, bad suspension, you name it. But I liked it because it took me to places. And I just sold my sports bikes. I was into sports bikes, but so we're looking at catalogs, Tour Tech and whatnot, and like, oh my God, 300 euros for this. My dad was like, I can make that for 10 euros. And so he would always prep the bikes for me, so I could go on some trips, throw in some luggage and all that jazz. So again, forward another few years, my wife and I were teaching English in Taiwan for 3 years, but it was a big dream of mine. Like most people, I assume, I was also inspired by Long Way Round, Charlie
It
and
seems
Ewan,
that seems to be
right?
kind of the thing that most people that I've
Yeah,
had on so far, that's what inspired them.
yeah. Well, it's one of them, right? And that was the biggest because they offered the biggest exposure. Very well documented.
Yeah.
I don't know, like BBC aired them like I don't know, like 30 episodes or something like that. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And this was also the early days of YouTube when you could find some content. And so we lived in Taiwan for 3 years, and before moving back to Canada, I really wanted to go back to Hungary to see my friends and my family. And I'm like, I'm so close to Siberia or Mongolia. I want to go. I want to see what it's like there. I like remote places, and so I was looking at the map. I always have maps on walls, like doesn't matter where I live. And I told my wife, "Hey, do you want to ride? to Europe maybe instead of flying. And she's like, how long is that gonna take? And I'm like, oh, 2-3 weeks. And so yeah, it wasn't 2 or 3 weeks, it was 2 months. But but she she was on board, which was amazing, right?
Yeah,
Because
for
you
sure.
know, it's just it's so awesome to do something with your partner, your wife, girlfriend, whatever. And so she was on board immediately. And then I started to get the ball rolling, looking at Horizons Unlimited, looking for data, how to cross borders, what kind of documentation you get, carnet de passage, and all those details. And it's pretty complex. You have to do a lot of research to not get into a lot of troubles. There's always some sort of trouble because there's a lot
Yeah.
of bureaucracy and corruption and whatnot. So we couldn't get a bike in Taiwan because they were so expensive. Foreign made motorcycles in Taiwan are very expensive due to the import duties. Like a simple Suzuki V-Strom back then would have cost 15,000 euros or
Wow.
dollars. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost the same. But in Europe, I could get one for 8 grand.
Right.
And I'm like,
Like
so
brand new. Yeah.
pretty much. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so that's what we will do. Now we had to find a place to ship the motorcycle to. Mongolia was the first option, but the air, yeah, the broker that we found, they said, yeah, we can do it, but the motorcycle will have to go in 2 crates. So that means you will have to disassemble the bike because the small aircrafts and they can only have so much space. I'm like, okay, that's crazy. And it still would have cost a fortune. And then we looked at Vladivostok, which is east end of Russia. You cannot send a vehicle into Russia without you being right next to the
Like with
vehicle
it.
physically.
Yeah.
And then we looked at South Korea. So you can send a motorcycle to South Korea and take a ferry over to Vladivostok.
Mm.
And you could just see the numbers piling up. Another cost. Like, this is going to turn into a fortune sort of
Right.
journey. So, and then one broker suggested that, hey, maybe you want to consider Central Asia, which is specifically Kyrgyzstan, because that was the cheapest by far and the most efficient. And I'm like, oh shoot, okay, so I won't be able to go to Mongolia. But that also meant that we could spend more time in the Pamir mountain range, which is the famous Pamir Highway. That's the highway that the Soviets built when they were battling with the Afghans. And so
Yeah.
that highway is non-existent now. It's pretty much gravel. Gravel is the better part because where there's no gravel, there is like millions of potholes, which is a lot
Was
worse than gravel.
was this is that what they called the road to Bones or whatever it was? Or
No,
yeah.
no, that's northeast
Oh,
Russia.
gotcha. Okay.
So this trip was all looking pretty good, and again, I found a V-Strom 650 with only like 2,000 kilometers, 1,500 miles on it only, and my dad's company outfitted it. Aluminum boxes, top case, crash bars, bash plate, headlight guards, center stand, maybe some other knickknacks.
So
And
at the
yep.
time, is that really the only motorcycle parts that Outback Motortek offered? Was it even called Outback Motortek then?
No. We
Right.
had no intentions of going into business with motorcycle parts. No, this was just going to be a journey to fulfill my needs mostly.
Yeah.
Definitely not
When
my
you
wife's.
when you started Outback Motortek, that is some of the
Yeah,
first parts you offered though, right? Was V-Strom parts.
correct. Because the bike was outfitted with our
Yeah.
parts, and it was a V-Strom. And so when we finished the trip, I put up the bike for sale. But it was very strange because people would be calling to inquire about the aluminum boxes or the bash plate. And I'm like, the bike is for sale, not the parts. So that was already, a bit of an indication that something was interesting in that what we produced or what we made. And so we sold the bike, and then a few months later, when we're living back in Canada, I I couldn't really find a job that I really liked or what I really wanted to, take on. And so I called my dad. I'm like, I'm not really finding anything good. And so I'm like, what if what if I design some parts and your company would just make it and I would make an online store and sell it. But yeah, my dad being, like a tough love guy is like, yeah, sure, whatever you want. My dad
Yeah.
doesn't, he would not put effort into it. Like, yeah, I will make it, but well, he would complain like, I don't have time for this. And then next day he's like, here, there you go, it's done.
Yeah. Right.
He's
That's
one of
funny.
those guys. I'm sure a lot of people can relate.
Yeah. Like they act like they don't want to, but then they want to, like deep
Oh
down,
yeah,
just to like say
yeah,
they, to support
yeah,
you.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started making some prototypes for V-Strums only, and there was a horrible online store that I assembled, and I learned some uh, tricks from YouTube and how to work the back end and whatnot. And of course, it was a disaster.
Well, I'll tell you, it couldn't have been too bad because you and I rode the Idaho BDR, just for people who are listening,
Mhm.
this summer, and I told you that I found your company back in how this must have been 2012, 13, 14, somewhere in there,
Yeah.
and I had a Suzuki V-Strom. That was like the
Mhm.
first adventure bike that I owned, 650, and I had done tons and tons of mods to it, and I kept breaking
Yeah.
the the skid plate that I had. I won't name the name of it, but I kept having to weld up this riveted skid plate, and I'm like, finally, I found your company. But unfortunately, I think for guys being so small, it was like I could never get it in stock. So I was like, I moved on to something else. And then later on down the road, here we are full circle. And it's like you
Hmm.
have grown so much in that short amount of time. And it's
Yeah.
just like cool to see the growth that Outback Motortek has had.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't know you had a V-Strum, but I our V-Strum products never really made a big impact. We It was good. It was a good start, and well, I think what really started putting attention on our products is when I first did the drop test. It was the first drop test on a V-Strum, and I went to just some cornfield, and it was like this dual track, semi-frozen road. This was in Ontario when we lived in
Oh
Ontario,
yeah. Yeah.
and I put my phone with the camera recording on the ground. We like supported it with a rock. Didn't even have a tripod or anything. And I would start riding towards the camera, first gear, second gear, and then have enough speed, and then from second gear, pop down to neutral, turn off the engine, and just literally
Just
hop off
dumped
the
it.
bike, and then bam.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, the turn signal broke off, and then I did it again, and then the crash bars, it touched the plastic panel, it didn't crack it, but it was it was just a good indication for me. Okay, what am I selling here? Is it gonna be holding up? Am I gonna get complaints because they're not working? I just wanted to see myself what
Yeah.
they can do before the products reach, you know, the end users. Because
Absolutely.
I
Like
I was
your
not,
own R&D.
yeah, and it's I think it's very barbaric to some people.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people have especially if you come from another style of motorcycle,
Mm,
say a cruiser or a street bike or anything like that, that your bike is never supposed to touch the ground. In adventure bike world, it's
mm.
like if it doesn't touch the ground, then you're probably not having enough fun that day. So I mean, it's
Yeah,
got your bike's going to hit the ground at least once a trip. That's just how it goes. So
yeah, yeah. So that's how it carried on, and then there wasn't momentum initially. It was actually very bad. Um, very little sales. Like the first sale, I couldn't even conclude online. The guy was like, "I don't trust your store. I kind of like the price of the products. Would you meet me on the highway?" This was in close to Toronto, and I'm like, so it was like, oh my god, it's 2 p.m. It's gonna be rush hour. Toronto is like a major city, right? And I'm like, okay, I don't care. I'm gonna go. And of course, it's 4 p.m. Big traffic jam. Toronto is moving. People are going home from work. I still met the guy at a gas station. We exchanged products for cash.
that was your first sale, huh? That's
That was the
awesome.
first. That was the first ever sale, and then nothing again for probably like a month or two.
Wow.
Uh, it was very slow and painful, but I think that's the way it's supposed to be, perhaps,
Absolutely.
because
Yeah,
if it was easy, everybody would do it.
for sure. And what year was this when what
That's
year was your first sale?
2014.
14? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. And here we are like 10 years later and you've come so far, man. It's crazy. What
Yeah.
sets in your mind, what sets Outback Motortek apart from other manufacturers in the industry?
I I don't know. I don't think I can answer this because I don't know. Honestly, I'd probably partially presentation, because we do these drop test videos. People really like him. It's like probably one of the best marketing for us.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that other crash bar brands are not reliable or they don't perform. It's just we do show something. We don't talk about it. You know, you can talk about specs all day. I just don't think people are really interested in that. People want to see something action, you know. But
Yeah.
I can't really answer your question, because it's not like we look at the other guys every time and analyze. We powder coat, the other guys powder coat too. You know, we use
Yeah.
inch diameter tubing, other guys do too. Maybe sometimes we go for, let's say, different mounting points or additional mounting brackets. Let's say with the 1090, we came out with this, I don't want to call it invention. It's just a bracket that nobody had ever designed. And then we came up with the idea to support the upper crash bars. This is for the 1090, 1190. So instead of just having an upper crash bars like a floating design, we added a big heavy duty cross brace that also supports the lower crash bars and adds more uh, strength to the upper crash bar. So it's like it ties them together and it supports them. It's like a big flat bar brace that goes into four directions, you know, up and down and sideways too.
Yeah.
And maybe things like that help.
Hmm.
And sometimes we just work with the mounting points on motorcycles that the other guys work too, because sometimes the bikes dictate. And yeah, we tend to use sometimes thicker flat bars, different design. It's not always the best thing to make something sorry, it's not always the best thing to make something overly strong, because it can transfer more impact. So
Right.
we that's partially why we test our products, because we want to see. We know the crash bars bend. It's actually not a bad thing when they bend. That's how they absorb impact.
Absorb the
If
energy. Yeah.
Exactly. So sometimes we have to find this balance. Not too much bending and not too little bending, right? So finding the sweet spot is really hard. So that's what our testing is very helpful for.
Gotcha. And I think honestly, just this conversation right here is one of the reasons why people who follow and are very loyal to the Outback brand, I think is just your honesty. You don't go and out on social media and stuff like that and say like we are the best because this and other people are doing this and we do it better. I think people know that the proof is kind of in the pudding, if you will, like that you
Mm-hmm.
have a track record of having strong and the brand just seems to be humble, right? It's not, look at us, look at us. They're not flashy. You don't go for necessarily looking what looks the best on the bike. It's what's functional and what's going to protect the bike. Because at the end of the day, you're buying crash protection to protect the motorcycle. It's a bonus if you can make it
Yeah.
look good with the lines and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes when you make it look good with the lines, you are going to lose integrity with the protection. So again, like you said, there's a balance there. And I don't know, I feel like people just see that in your presentation, the crash test. It's again, you show what it does. You don't just talk about it, you show it. So in my opinion, that's why I like your product. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
just talking to people in the industry who, for the last few years, and I've been kind of promoting you guys just because we met because I had other crash bars in the industry, two other companies, and I mean they were bending just from simply falling over. And I
Mm-hmm.
rode my Africa Twin pretty hard, and I was kind of tired of every time I would need to take side panels off, having to use pry bars and stuff to
Mm-hmm.
put the crash bars back on. And you kind of reached out to me and was like, "Hey, try these out." And sure. And I had that bike for like 4 more years and had no issues whatsoever. And I beat the dog crap out of it. So
I remember.
it,
I remember.
I
I
was, I was sold on that for sure. So,
Yeah,
so
we
go ahead.
definitely don't. I definitely don't. I personally don't like to um, hype up our brand and also the products. And at the same time, it would also look very, very bad on us if we talk badly about other brands. It would not take us any further. Maybe in the short run, but long run, no way. No. Plus, it's a small industry,
Exactly.
and we would like to get along with everybody because, yeah, we are brands. Yeah, we make money and all that. We're in business, but at the end of the day, we're all connected by the same passion, which is motorcycles. So
Yeah.
it's it's nice to get along.
Exactly. I mean, even just, for me doing YouTube since 2016,
Yeah.
I've had brands that I've really liked and I've had brands that I don't like so much, but I'll
Mm.
never say anything bad about anybody, to the public. Maybe behind closed doors, me and my
That
friends, I'll say like, hey, this didn't work out because of this or whatever, but I'm never gonna dog anybody publicly on anything because it's just not how you do things, So
would not
uh
help you at all.
no.
I don't think that would be smart and wise because we've had cases where people thought that we were selling the ultimate crash bars, and they were under the impression that they would never bend and never have
Yeah.
any harm to the bike. But it happens sometimes that even from a standstill crash, it can happen that they bend more than we advertise. We like to specify to people that, hey, yes, we do those drop test videos. That's cool, but we only present a few common scenarios. But and thousands of people know that there are dozens, if not hundreds, of different crash scenarios.
Yeah.
And sometimes speed doesn't influence how much a set of crash bars would bend, right? So yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's it's really hard to say. That's why we don't like to say we're the best. That would be absolutely stupid. I don't think they would
Yeah.
take us anywhere, and I think actually it turns people off when you come off arrogant and also degrading to other brands. That would not help
Yeah.
our case. No way.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. So moving forward, how do you approach the design and development of motorcycle protection parts? I mean, a new bike comes out. I know you guys have had a lot of cool technology come up, and you partner with some brands there, or partner with a company there in Canada. So, what is your approach to designing? From what you can tell me, I don't want to like give any secrets away, but
Oh
what can
no,
you tell me as far
yeah,
as your approach to?
there's no there's no
Yeah,
secret here.
yeah,
Actually, it's funny because for years our R&D was pretty much like Stone Age. You can call it like
yeah,
very, very simple. It's For years I was just developing parts with my dad. Like I said, he's the machinist. He also rides motorcycles. I'm the traveler on motorcycles, but he has a machinist degree. I don't have anything I have an international relations, degree, which is, it has nothing to do with motorcycles or designing parts. So I don't have any engineering degree. I just design parts that I think would work. So for years, we would get a motorcycle, look at it, look for the mounting points, try to imagine some brackets and where we would put them, and then design on the work on the shape and start. So would have some flat bars, bend them, drill a hole, bolt them on, and then we would just put tubes on. Different tubes. Like we would cut them down and then bend it, and hopefully we can find the right shape.
you would just line them up, right? Just try to hope that it all lines up correctly.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, we would still do some calculations like angles and whatnot, but it didn't always work out so perfectly. So this was for about 5-6 years. We still managed. It was very simple. Not, I can't say it was effective because it took us a lot longer than what we are working with now. But we were just not ready financially to commit to it because the company was just growing.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's stay with the good old technique, do it manually. And so that was the start. Now, when we get a new motorcycle, we 3D scan the motorcycle. It's full scan with with focus on certain details, especially where we need to put brackets and tabs and of course the tubing itself. So we 3D scan everything now, and then from 3D scan we design everything in AutoCAD, and this is where where things get very exciting. Now we go from AutoCAD to 3D printing.
Yeah, that's cool.
But we have an industrial grade 3D printer. It's not the filament type. It's a SLS type, which means it's a selective laser sintering 3D printer that uses powder, and it fuses powder using a laser inside a chamber that heats up to 180 degrees Celsius, which is, I'm guessing, about close to 600 Fahrenheit. I could be wrong, but a metric, I'm sorry. And
Yeah.
so that's what it does. So we have these products that are printed with insane precision, like the thickness of a hair is absolutely crazy. And so we fit those parts on motorcycles. And once the parts are fitted, then we can build the welding jig around those parts. And so that's the new R&D, I guess, system we have in place.
Yeah, it speeds everything up
And
like crazy,
it,
right?
yeah, I was just going to say that now we are about 3-4 times faster. Sometimes, no, actually, now the first prototype, the first version is the production version, as opposed to
Wow.
before we could go through 3, 4, sometimes 5, until we see that everything was nice and symmetrical, everything looked good. Back then, it was a lot more guessing game, and now there isn't much of a guessing game. Everything is very, very precise and fast.
That's amazing. And yeah, I mean, in a business like yours, time is money. A new bike comes out. I mean, you don't necessarily want to be the first one. It doesn't really necessarily, it's not a race,
No,
right? But
no, it's not a race now.
at the same time, people get excited about new motorcycles like the new Alp, what is it? Trans Alp. That's a bike that came out, and you guys were able to crush those and get them out really fairly fast. It feels
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and I think that new system you guys have, just kind of watching your story that you've posted on social media and things like that with the 3D scanner and all that, it blows. I don't have them. I mean, I like to build things, but
Mm,
that type of, that's beyond any type of, like, that's outside my realm
mhm.
of expertise. So
Yeah.
it's really cool to watch it go from literally just scanning with that white spray to not even, I don't know, what's the turnaround time between the time that you've 3D scanned it to a time that you have it printed?
It could be within the week, depending on the
That's
complexity of
nuts.
the product.
Yeah, that's
It could
nuts.
be because 3D scanning itself, it takes a few hours, and then there's data processing. It can take half a day or a day, depending on the size of the data. And then the AutoCAD design, again, depends on the complexity. Sometimes we can finalize a product in 3-4 days. And
Yeah.
then the printing itself takes less than 24 hours, right? By the
Crazy.
time you have an actual, this is the most optimal case we're talking about here. This is the best case
Right.
scenario.
Yeah.
But it definitely is very fast now. Now the only downside is it's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
But I mean, I guess if you weigh it though, I mean, from a business standpoint, correct me if I'm wrong, if you had
mhm,
to do 3, 4, 5 iterations of a product that doesn't work, the time and materials that you spent trying
mhm,
to develop those, I mean, it would seem like it would
yeah.
be pretty close as far as, money in, right? So if you can spend the same but save the amount of time to
Mhm.
get a product out, it seems like that's a
It's
win-win all the way.
it's worth it first. We can justify the cost. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a lot of, fortunately now, we have a lot of returning customers who switch bikes,
Yeah.
every 6 months or a year, and they want to
Yeah.
come back to us and like, hey, I want your product. So, chop chop, right?
Right.
and it's good. So we try to meet those, deadlines the customers often set.
Yeah. So in the current, this isn't really a question I had prepared, but in the
Mm.
current state that I guess the world is in right now, have you ran into any production issues with materials or anything like that you get? Because where is your main production facility at right now?
It's in Hungary.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
So you
that's
haven't had any.
the no, well, no, maybe in 2021 it was a bit slow, but otherwise, no, we're doing pretty good. We're
Good.
and the factory is still run by my family.
Yeah.
My dad, now mostly my brother, and now the factory employs close to 40 people,
Cool.
and that's only Outback Motortek. There's nothing else. It's just the factories for Outback Motortek, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, because you have another factory for the other business. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
across the street or across town or something.
Oh, it's in the same town, like a kilometer,
Yeah.
like, yeah, half
Yeah.
a mile over, something like that. So, but that was not enough for Outback. Outback was growing so fast that uh, there had to be, we had to make arrangements to set up another factory. So good problems to have.
Yeah, and so then going back to the 3D printing
Mhm.
materials, how strong it's pretty strong, right? Because you've been making some other parts out of just the 3D printer that you can add on to like say dual sport and dirt bikes, right?
Absolutely, yeah. They are ready to use, like almost like literally like plug and play. Currently, I have parts on a KTM 500 EXC, and they are straight out of the printer, and I've been using them. They reinforce the tail end of this 500 EXC, which the fender is pretty flexy out of the factory. So if
Right.
you add luggage onto it, it can turn into a disaster real soon because they can snap, especially if you
Right.
put a lot of weight on it. But been using those and a bunch of other products. MSR slash Primus fuel bottle holder. We've been testing and they're very sturdy. We even have the rear racks. Uh, we have 10 700 grab handle, plastic grab handles,
Hmm.
and they were so strong that we actually lifted the bike with it. The bike was hanging in the air, and this is
Yeah.
again straight out of this printer. I don't know. I can't speak for other types of printers, but this specific printer we have, it produces very durable products. It's plastic though, so it can only you can only push it so far.
Right. It's not going to have the same strength as metal or carbon fiber or anything like that. But as far
No,
as
no,
like
but
the
it's pretty
tie
good.
down, yeah, I think you made some tie down points too for the Moscow bags.
Mhm.
Is that right? Yeah. So you guys have
That's
a
right.
pretty
Yeah,
good, you have a pretty close relationship with Moscow Moto, right? Because go ahead
very.
and tell us about that a little bit because you make some parts specifically for their gear as well, right? Or you team up with parts.
Yeah, we don't make anything specific at the moment, but they have been selling our pannier racks since 2019. 2019, I believe, or 2020, 2019-ish. And so yeah, we have a good relationship. We were just hanging with the co-founder Pete for a few days
Yeah.
in the desert. We're looking at the 500 EXC part that we have, and we're most likely going to collaborate on this part
Cool.
to integrate it into their system.
Wow.
And it's very exciting. It's very exciting to
Yeah.
work with a company like Moscow Moto because they are, the
Well, I think
in
both of you
the
guys
gold
are all
standard.
about. Yeah, both of you guys are all about like innovation and making products better. Even when you have a product that's been very successful, you're always like, how can I make this? Like, there's got to be something that's not perfect about it, and you always want to make it better. And what I really like about you and Moscow Moto is that you listen to your customers. Like, the customers have feedback, and you don't take it as a complaint as more as like, okay, how do we make this part better? And I love the fact that both you and Moscow Moto have done that with your parts. So
Well,
um
we have to listen. Sometimes
yeah.
if the complaint is only from 0.1%,
Yeah.
that that means that they just like something else, but not what we make. But if it's a larger volume percentage complaint, then it could be legit. So we just have to make changes and improvements, and I don't see why any company would not do that. I
Yeah.
think
I mean,
it's
there's,
it's very.
believe it or not, I mean, I know I've dealt with it. There's companies out there that want feedback, and then when you give them feedback, they get defensive about it, and it's like, okay, well, don't ask for feedback. And so I know, like, as we've talked about, you take the influence of, you know, people in the business who use your product day in and day out, and like I said, you've made changes to certain things. I mean, I know even with the Africa Twin, I think you made a couple of changes with the crash bars through the iterations over time, right? Yeah. So
Yeah, sometimes you just have to, if you want to
yeah,
stay in the game, or if you want to, be ahead of the curve.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
also important. And well, we're always open to feedback. That's why we have Google reviews, Facebook reviews, and a lot of social media presence, so people can let us know what we can do better. But
yeah.
why not?
If you guys are listening to this and you don't follow Outback Motortek, it's right there at the bottom of his screen. It's Outback_Motortek, and yeah, definitely follow those guys, because you, like I said, you show all of your drop tests on social media. Like you mentioned, having the grab handles, that was a pretty cool video just to watch you guys hoist that bike up from the rafters. I mean, it's cool. I mean, and you're always producing just new stuff constantly. So if you want to keep on top
Yeah,
of what you guys are always putting out, definitely follow them on social media.
it's pretty funny, Kyle, because when I was a kid, I was known to be the kid that destroyed everything. I just liked breaking stuff. Like, it was so bad. Like, I would get in trouble so much because I just broke things. And then I've been doing these drop tests, not just alone now. And my dad was like, finally, your bad behavior turned into a
It's
good
paying
thing.
off.
It's like, thanks, Dad, for being patient with me.
It's funny. That's great. Well, are there any products that you're excited about coming out here in the near future that you can kind of put out there for people to get excited about as well, or anything that coming down the pike?
Yeah, one of it is the KTM 500. Also, is going to be 501. This rear brace, um, because we see that there are more and more people who want to travel on light dual sport bikes, and they want to
Yeah.
be able to put luggage on it. Currently, if you just take a bike out of this showroom, like a 500 EXC, it's really hard. You can put reckless luggage on it, but it's not going to be functional. So that's
You're
that's one
limited.
thing that
Yeah.
yeah. So that's one thing that people are very excited about right now. We only started posting it about 2 weeks ago, and the thing blew up. Like, there's so many comments and so many ones. And another thing that we'll be working on, this is not a secret. We are looking at actually changing the subframe of these KTM 500 Husky 501 machines, like completely swapping out the subframe, reinforce it, and have proper mounting points, designated mounting points for auxiliary fuel tanks, to luggage, to essentially anything you want, because those subframes are not designed for overland traveling. If you want to load up and go far, you won't be able to. So, and most likely, we're going to team up with Rebel X, which is a
Oh,
fairly well-known company from Italy. The
yeah.
owner finished the Dakar race, I think, twice, and they also proposed this idea. So we started working on this, and it's going to be a big project, though, because for example, the auxiliary fuel tank that Rebel X is proposing, that would have to be custom made to fit the bike
Yeah.
properly. But the beauty is, you would have a bike that's very, very nicely balanced, and
Yeah.
also with a stronger subframe. We understand that this is going to be very specific for the crowd who seeks the overland traveling, because adding a heavier, stronger subframe, people who race, they will not benefit from it. They will just stick
Right.
with the aluminum subframe. But we're seeing some change here, that people are riding now with 500s and 501s with luggage, because it's light and light is
Right.
right.
Right. Yeah, especially if you're going to do, places like Baja and things like that, where the terrain isn't just regular, you're not touring at that point. You're
Exactly. Yeah.
true off road. So you can do it on a GS, but it's going to be a lot more work. Whereas I
Yeah.
think it is funny how it shifted. It used to be the bigger, the more comfortable, the better.
Mm.
And, and now it seems to have almost completely flip flopped, and manufacturers are starting to see that and going lighter. And I mean, the 500, the KTM 500 or the 501 is definitely on my radar, not as my primary bike, but
Mhm.
just to see what people have been doing. It's something that I would like to maybe get into.
Yeah. Also, depending on where you live, like we live in British Columbia and we have a lot of remote areas. Riding solo with a big bike can be risky and dangerous and all that. So
Yeah.
having a bike that's capable, and you can pick it up like 15 times a day if you have to, that makes sense. We're definitely not steering away from big bikes. It's still our bread and butter, and we love big bikes. Like we're getting the 1300 GS now. We already have the scan data. 900
Cool.
GS. That's we just got a call from the dealers like, hey, March, you can come and pick up the bikes. Like, yay, awesome.
Great.
So
That's exciting.
yes, yeah, very exciting. And aluminum panniers.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
forgot
bit
about that.
it's a bit controversial, I guess, because we're not known for it, and the market seems to be leaning towards soft luggage these days. But
I think, in my opinion, it just depends on what you're going to do with the motorcycle, right? If you're going to do
so
a lot more touring, then panniers
yeah.
make a lot of sense.
But what I think what's going to be different with our aluminum panniers is that Moscow Moto offered us their mounting system that they
Right.
used for the backcountry panniers.
Mm-hmm.
Ours would bolt on the aluminum panniers, and then you would be able to switch between soft luggage and hard cases in a matter of
Just seconds.
seconds.
Yeah.
But there are some features that may not work for aluminum panniers, like on the Moscow Moto mounting system, you have this speed pin.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you want to lock it, you have to put a padlock. The padlock doesn't look too good on aluminum boxes, right?
Especially after it
So
bounces around for like.
yeah, exactly. So we're integrating a lock that will
Gotcha.
still lock the speed pin. It's just going to be a nicer solution. And also, most aluminum panniers are wide and not deep. So you can't just put on the Moscow Moto mounting system because theirs is pretty tall. So
Yeah.
our aluminum panniers are going to be narrower but deeper.
Which
And
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially when you already have, like, for instance, just thinking about my bike, right? The
mm,
GSA. If you when you put hard panniers on there and you stick out even further past the cylinders, you want your cylinder heads to be your limiting factor, not your panniers, right? So I think
yeah,
that's a great idea by having them thinner like that.
yeah. So we'll see where it goes. For us, it's actually a bit of it's a nice it's a nice new product for us. It's also a bit of a milestone because we are 10 years old, and 10 years ago when we rode across Asia, we had aluminum panniers.
Oh
So
yeah.
now we're going back to it. It's pretty nice. It's a nice feeling. Yeah, but
Well, congratulations. That's amazing.
it's not good. Yeah, it's not gonna be our primary
Yeah.
product. It's still gonna be, protection, crash bars, and bash plates, and racks. And so, but I think it will be a nice addition to our product line.
Yeah, and then just aesthetically too, I like what you've done with them because they have the modular system to where you can put the Molly stuff on there, just from what I've seen at least. And then,
Yes.
did you guys decide to do the almost like the bed liner tough coat bottom on those, or did you go away from that? I think you had there was a prototype
We
of that event at one point.
Yeah, we tested it. There are two issues. Is the thickness is not always consistent.
Hmm.
So if the person who applies the coating, if it's too thick, and when they remove this masking tape, then the edge can be sharp. If
Yeah.
it's just a little bit too thick. Also, it's very heavy. It adds a lot of weight.
Oh,
The idea was very good because it's a tough coating. It's very tough, but it's got probably more downsides when it comes to at least aluminum panniers. They're fantastic, on trucks and other vehicles, but not aluminum
yeah.
panniers.
Yeah,
So
that
it's
makes sense.
unfortunate.
Well, do you have anything else you want to add as far as what the business or what the company's got coming down the pike, or Anything else you'd like to add here?
I can talk about it for hours, but we don't have hours
Yeah.
to kill here. Sorry, I gotta keep on adjusting this thing because when I speak, it actually starts slipping out.
Yeah.
Very
No, I
annoying.
went to these like over the ear ones because
Yeah,
I have some ones that go in my ear, and
yeah,
constantly I'm doing
yeah,
this. So
yeah. No,
um
I would say that the another thing that we're very excited about is having this printer. We're adding another printer to it, a different type for different materials. And that's really enabled us to come out with some really unique products that could cost a fortune to CNC machine, or it's not worth getting into the injection molding part of it because we probably can't sell tens of thousands of them. So
to justify the cost, yeah.
having this printer will be able to, and this is based in British Columbia, will be able to produce parts almost on demand, or just produce small volume because it can do it, and it's still we can still justify the cost, and it's worth the investment. And having very light parts in certain situations is a very good option. It's a good alternative to metal.
Yeah.
Now with the printer, what we can also do is produce very, very complex shapes, abstract shapes that would be very hard to produce out of metal. Even if it's CNC machine, you need like multiple axis CNC machine, all that
Right.
jazz. And again, you have to remove so much material. And with printing, we add material, which is for us, it's a game changer.
So that kind
And
of goes back to what I mentioned before about the balance between aesthetic and look. And then with
mm,
this way, you get to have the look and also still have some rigidity or strength to the
yeah,
product. And it's again, man, it's just like the innovation and thinking outside the box. It's not just welded metal. It's, thinking
yeah,
outside the box and coming up with these ideas, I think is one of these things that set you guys apart. And you can put your logo, like your name in there, which is just, I think that's awesome
yeah.
too.
The one good example is the new KTM 890. It has more fairings than ever before, and
Mm,
so we were struggling with the idea of how will people be able to mount auxiliary lights on this bike, because there's nothing
that's
we
right.
can't.
Yeah.
And this is a bike we don't make crash bars for because everything is covered up.
Right.
There's so much plastic, just crazy amount of plastic. The bike looks better though, if you don't mind me voicing my opinion. It looks better than before due to
Yeah.
the additional plastic. It's a nicer design. But so we found some mounting points, but the shape is so complex because you have to wrap around from starting from underneath the headlight, wrapping around the front end and along the side. Yeah, so we found an area that utilizes three mounting points. And so, but the shape is so complex. Not only it wraps, not only does it wrap around the plastic, it also it twists.
Mm,
And to
yeah.
make that out of a flat bar, it would be doable, but you may not get it with the same consistency.
Mhm.
CNC machining would cost a fortune. With the help of the 3D scanner and a 3D printer, we could pick up the shape so precisely and so perfectly. And now we have these beautiful and strong auxiliary light brackets. We haven't started selling them. We just finished testing, but they hold up very well. So we're going to put them into production. And again, this is thanks to the 3D printer we have.
Yeah, I remember when we rode this past summer, you had those on
Mm,
your 890, and they looked.
mm,
I mean, they looked like they were from the factory. They looked
mhm.
so like they were part of the bike.
Yeah,
So we'll
yeah.
we'll throw up a picture if we haven't already. Well, we'll throw it up as we talk about that. But man, it's exciting to see everything that's coming down the pike for you guys, and from where you've come from to where you are now, and where you're going. And dude, I appreciate you taking the time
Mm.
and spending time kind of having your, while you're on your vacation with your family to take the time out for me and the viewers here, and just to kind of tell your story and give kind of a Reader's Digest version of how the company started. Super interesting. And guys, if you haven't yet, definitely head over and follow both Outback Motortek's Instagram, YouTube. Where can they find you? What all social media platforms are you on?
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X. That's the 4 platforms. Instagram and Facebook, we post the same content.
Okay.
So that's nothing different. YouTube is different again. We post different content because it's primarily, it's only videos, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to Instagram, Facebook, we mix it up. But yeah, we are very active on those platforms. And again, I also would like to thank you for having me on this awesome little podcast show. And I'm not on vacation.
Well, I know. I just you're enjoying being away from up north though. So maybe
that's right.
it's
Yeah.
a workcation maybe. So
Yeah, exactly. I don't call it vacation. Vacation would be if I turned off my phone for like 10 days, but I don't. Traveling with
you
a
won't do that.
Starlink, traveling with a Starlink and big solar panels and whatnot. So we can always be connected and still having meetings, still talking with dealers and customers and making new content. Just we just don't stop.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
don't.
I don't think you can. Like you said, you're constantly going. I don't see you slowing down anytime soon. So, man, just keep doing what you're doing. Have an awesome time down in Baja. And man, thanks so much for coming on here. And we'll chat soon. Hopefully we can get a ride in here before too long. But all right, guys, if you aren't following Outback Motortek, definitely I'll leave the links down below for both the website and all of the social media platforms. But if you have any questions for myself or Lorry, hit us in the comments down below. If he can't answer them, I will, and also go over to his Instagram page, and he's the one who runs that one as well. So don't go over there and blow him up, but because he is a busy guy. But definitely, if you have any questions about Outback Motortek or anything that they offer, definitely hit him up over on Instagram. But guys, once again, thanks for watching this video. Hit a subscribe button. That way you know when more videos like this are released, and we'll see you in the next one.